But no one really knew what, anorexia was back then, when I was a teenager.
And that's what it was.
Because I wanted to go fishing in Alaska, and also I started practicing karate at a school that was right next to where I lived in Seattle. It was kind of through that is how I actually ended up in Japan. So I was like,
I want to thank both of you for allowing me to come into your fantastic, beautiful gym that you've had here for how long now?
It's been
a little over, 12 years now, right?
Yeah.
We opened right at the end of 2010,
Mhm.
going into 2011. Officially, it was 2011. We opened right before the tsunami and the earthquake and everything.
Right.
We
Yeah.
almost went bankrupt and everything.
You said you went bankrupt?
Almost.
no, we didn't.
Almost.
But this close.
That almost happened with my company as well. And I think I read in one of the motivational books, one of the many motivational books that I read, that most millionaires go bankrupt at least 3 times before they hit the mother lode. Travis, Kaori.
Yeah.
Kaori, tell me, where were you born?
I was born in Matsuyama.
That's
Do you
okay.
know?
Yes,
Yeah.
I've been down to Shikoku.
Yeah.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I've ridden my motorcycle all the way around Shikoku.
Matsuyama is
Listen,
the capital city of Ehime.
And that's where I land.
Yeah.
You land there. I used to land there all the time on one particular business because they have a real beautiful airport back then.
Yeah.
Wow, Matsuyama.
Yeah.
So you grew up there?
I grew up there till I turned 10, 11, and
Okay.
then my parents moved to Yokohama,
Okay.
and then I stayed there till I turned 15, I think, or 15, 16.
Right. Are you the only child?
No, I'm in the middle. I have older brother and younger brother.
Okay. What's the years difference between the youngest and the oldest?
8 years each. So I'm right in the middle. So the age difference between the younger brother and the older brother is like 16 years.
So your parents waited 8 years each time?
Yeah, I don't think they waited, but just
Okay,
happened that
it just
way.
happened that way. Okay, I thought they planned it. That'd be magnificent planning.
Yeah, but it wasn't planned.
Okay. So how was it being, but that far apart? Were you weren't very close to either one, were you? Or maybe the younger one?
I wasn't maybe close to my older brother.
Okay.
Yeah, he was like on like my case, like you shouldn't do this, you should do that. So like I wasn't really close to him, but with my younger brother, he was my baby. So.
And he still is.
Yeah, he still is. I still like have dream, like in my dream, like he's like 6 years old or something. He's
right?
older than this guy, but yeah.
Is that right? So let me ask you. So when you were growing up, what was it like? I mean, when you came to Yokohama, you said you stayed there till you were
10, 11, yeah.
10, 11.
Like
And then you went to only Japanese schools?
Yeah.
Okay. Then how did you learn to speak English as well as you do?
Just self-taught.
Self-taught.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, like how? Give me that.
I was interested in it, so I started watching movies or videos, and then also I started writing my journal in English, and then.
From what age?
I started doing that seriously though after I turned 21 or 2.
Okay.
Yeah, but until then, I don't know. I was kind of interested in English, but I wasn't in that environment. But I do have the background of practicing music when I was a little child.
What piano?
No, marimba.
Wait. You picked marimba.
I didn't. My mom did.
Your mom's a musician?
Yeah. She was not, but somehow like she just happened to know someone who was a marimba player.
Okay.
And then quite famous person. And then somehow she thought like, I would have more opportunity to be a really great marimba player than to try to become like pianist, because there's so many people practice piano, right?
Okay. Now the marimba, what does it look like?
It's about 6 foot long.
Okay, 6 foot long, right?
And are you familiar with the xylophone or?
Xylophone, yes.
Yeah, the humongous xylophone.
Right. Don't bring it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's marimba too.
Yeah, that's marimba. Yeah. And then that's the one I got when I was 6 years old.
But you call it marimba, but we call it xylophone, don't we?
Yeah,
What's
but
the
it's a little different type, like different type of sound range.
Okay, it's just the sound that's
Sound
different, but the
range.
setup looks the same. It looks just
the
like
same,
the
but
xylophone.
much larger. Yeah.
Much larger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you ever play now?
No, I wish I could, but I started practicing wadaiko, Japanese drum, lately. But I used to play like drum and then
With
partnership.
Moko Sensei? You know Moko? You don't know Moko
No,
Sensei?
no.
Oh, she's dynamite with Daiko
Yeah.
drums. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
She had me squatting for a while. I mean, you feel it here. She had me on those drums, and I said, okie dokie,
Yeah.
I'm done. No. But that's what you're doing now?
Yeah.
That's what you
As
do
my
for your
hobby.
part-time, as your hobby?
Mhm.
Okay. Did you go, when you finished high school, did you go to college?
No, I didn't. There was a little long story. So I started practicing music when I was 6, and then and I scored pretty good at the IQ exam and stuff. So my mom, her expectation toward me was like up high here.
Gotcha.
So I tried to do like whatever I could do just to get the compliment out of her, but she never ever gave me. So I was never good enough for her, right? So I tried. And at some point when I was tiny, like 15, 16, I started feeling like, I don't think I can stretch myself any thinner than this. Then I stopped eating. I couldn't eat. And so back then I was 16, I think. And my original weight back then was like about 90 pounds or so. But I started losing weight so quickly. And within a couple of months, I got TB, tuberculosis. So I got
Actually, yes.
hospitalized in a sanatorium. So, and then I still kept refusing to eat. But no one really knew what, anorexia was back then. When I was a teenager.
And that's what it was.
Yeah. So I kept losing weight, and then my weight went down to, gosh, when I was lightest, like I was 21 kg, means like 40 something pounds.
You just
So I was this close to die,
dying.
but I was lucky enough not to.
What brought you out of it?
I remember I don't know, there wasn't one particular incident, but one day when I was at the hospital, everything was so gray in there. Because like I was the only younger person in that ward, and then everyone else was like an older person, like waiting for their time to come. And then I just felt like I just wanted to go outside to be under the sun just for some reason. And I was in this ward, like dark room for like a month, right? I just wanted to go outside, and I asked the doctor, and then they said, it's okay if it's just that, like backyard there. So I decided to go outside. Just to go outside, I had to have like, okay, I'm ready, I can go out.
But you were able to walk and stuff? Because you was really weak, weren't you?
Very weak, and my shoes felt really heavy, but I went outside. And as soon as I went outside, the color changed. Like in the building, everything was so gray, like not enough sunlight coming in those places. And then went outside, that was a sunny day. So everything was so beautiful. And then this hospital was in the countryside. So it's like everything just so green, and then somehow there was a goat. I don't know why, but there was a goat.
That was your angel goat.
I don't know. So I just started like looking at things and then hearing things and people laughing, and then people speaking, and then that was completely different world compared to where I was from. So I felt, I want to stay on this side, and then without really noticing or realizing it, I was thinking, if I keep purifying myself by not eating, I become free from things that I was feeling. Means that I was slowly
killing yourself.
Killing myself. And I wasn't really aware of that clearly, but I felt I want to stay on this side of this world. So I went back into the room, and then for the first time, I ate the food a little bit. And still, like, I had this ups and downs. So it took me several years. So by the time I finished my high school program, I was 20.
This is all in Yokohama?
No, like when I was 16, when I started becoming quite ill, my family went back to Matsuyama. So
they went back?
Yeah, so my time in the hospital was in Matsuyama.
Okay.
Yeah, so then, I turned like 20 or so, and I just wanted to figure out what caused me to go onto that path, and then I wanted to study psychology or psychiatry, either one. But I wasn't really healthy enough to do anything still. And then so I wanted to do something to make myself like healthy enough so I can be independent from my mom.
Okay.
You know, and so I started doing some yoga or tai chi and stuff like. But I didn't really like it much. And then, but then, Jane Fonda's workout came into Japan.
You're telling people your age now. All right, go on.
Yeah, so I started like,
and she tried to sue. You know, she tried to sue some people for doing the same thing, for jumping jacks. And if anyone would be able to do that, it'd be Jack LaLanne. He's the one that started this stuff. For Jane Fonda's Fitness, I remember that.
Yeah. So started like checking, you know, how like book, and then also started reading the Dr. Kenneth Cooper's aerobics book, and then so started like kind of mimicking those things, and then I liked it, and then I found the class, and then I started going there, and then I just totally enjoyed it, and then a year later I found myself completely just made over.
Well, that's
yeah. So
how old were you then? About
I
20?
was 21.
21.
Yeah.
Now we come to Travis. My man, where were you born?
What year?
Where?
Oh, where?
Not with young.
I was born actually in Lake Tahoe area, but
Okay.
my parents moved there pretty soon after I was born, so I didn't really spend any time there. So
Okay.
from Lake Tahoe, they moved up to the Seattle area,
Mm-hmm.
so that's basically where I grew up. So I was
Are you the only child?
No, I have an older sister, so she's about 10 years older than me. But so it's similar.
My
kind of
age.
You
thing.
guys have in common. Your age.
Yeah.
10 years difference. It's 10 years difference.
Yeah, it's 10 years.
And you're so happy about that. Yeah, I got myself a young guy. Look at this. And he said, I got myself a mature woman. Look at that. All right.
Yeah.
So.
And nobody can guess that we're 10 years apart. Actually, I don't think I'm older than her.
Of course they would. Yes. That's usually the natural order. That's the order you
just
use.
because the lines on the face.
No, you won't. Go on. You look so happy. That makes her look really young. Look on. So you grew up with this 10-year-old sister. Are you guys close at all?
Yeah, I mean, we're close enough, but I mean, obviously with the 10-year age gap, right? I mean, she was, in the US, you know, they're out of the house early, and she was out. Well, actually, my parents separated, divorced, and remarried when I was quite small. And so when that happened, I was around like 4 or 5, my sister was living with my dad initially, and then she kind of took off by the time she was like 17, 18. She was already doing her own thing and moved out. And I'm like, 6, 7 years old. So, of course, we didn't spend a lot of time.
Okay.
And
So just you and your mother.
So, yeah, so for all intents and purposes, as I was growing up my day-to-day life, it was kind of like being an only child, right? With my mother and my stepfather. And then my father and my stepmother, they were actually moved to a different part of Washington State. So
And left you there?
Yeah, so I was only seeing them kind of on the
So how old were you when you left there?
How old was I when I left?
When they left?
Oh, my father and my stepmother?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, was it your father, your mother, and your stepfather? Wait, hold it. Who raised you, your mother or your father?
My mother and my stepfather is where I spent the bulk of my time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they left.
No. I wasn't them. That was the bulk of my time.
Okay.
So my biological father, my stepmother, they were on the same area for a little bit, and then they moved to a different part of Washington State.
Okay.
And I would see them for a couple months in the summertime and like a Christmas break kind of thing. But the bulk of my time was with my mother and my stepfather in a little bit north of Seattle. There's island chains there, the San Juan Islands.
Yes.
Yeah, so I grew up on those islands.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful
That is
place.
interesting. So are you still, how are your mother and father doing now?
Oh, great.
They're both doing well.
Yeah.
And yours, Kaori?
Mhm.
Well,
Well-
mom and dad are doing well.
No. Oh, no. My mom passed away 5 years ago. My dad is, I think in his way, I think he's happy. He's got dementia.
Was he close with you, though, when
Yeah.
you were young?
Yeah.
You were his sweetheart, weren't you?
Yeah.
His little Hime-san.
Yeah, he was the only one who told me I was, loud.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So tell me about, what was it like for you growing up in your childhood?
I guess, I don't know. I don't really think about it all that much.
What do you know think about? No, I mean, not in a bad way. I mean, what did you do when you went through school? Did you have teachers? Did you have a bunch of friends? Did you get
Yeah.
involved with
So I
sports?
grew up in a very small community. So again, like I mentioned, I grew up in the San Juan Islands. So there's multiple islands. I grew up on the largest one. It's called the Whidbey Island. I grew up on the south end of that. And very small community. They're largely kind of the hippies that have moved up from California
Right, of
and
course,
workers
yeah.
types and all that.
Right.
And so as a place to grow up, in retrospect, I can look at it, I was like, yeah, it was wonderful.
You had a village.
One nature, really quiet. Had a lot
Everybody
of,
knew you?
yeah, everybody knew a lot of stuff, community things going on, big, there was always something. It seemed like every couple of months there was something going on, a big potluck at somebody's house or something. And so there's a lot of interaction there and a lot of that real, in this country environment, very much the opposite of being in so it's just a lot of trees and open forest land and things like that. So I was kind of used to.
Do you have any friends you still keep in touch with that you grew up with?
To a certain degree, we stay in touch to a certain degree, but I'll be totally honest. I mean, since I've been in Japan for the past 20 odd years, it's like most of my stuff has kind of shifted over here. And, I'll go back for business and stuff and see my mother and my stepfather and that sort of thing. And, and I'll catch up with people, but it's not, friends. Yeah, I would say it's kind of in the middle. I haven't lost touch, but it's not like we're on the phone
all the time,
every month.
Month or so. Did you go to college?
Yeah. So I went to the University of Washington there.
Okay.
Yeah. So after I finished school, not even that was a little bit. I was kind of in and out of college, to be honest, because I went. I wasn't really sure what I was doing when I went in there. To be
who does?
Yeah. And so.
Were you 18 when you went in, or 17?
Yeah, 18. Right. So obviously, so I finished. I went through high school. My high school actually does a little bit of. I don't know if it's interesting for you and your listeners, but that was a little bit interesting little jog. So I grew up on Whidbey Island, which obviously has its own school system and everything, South Whidbey School District and all that. I went to there until high school, and then at high school, my parents and some other parents in the community, they got this idea that they would try to send some of the kids over to a private school in Seattle. They thought it might be a little bit different education, it'd be a different experience than just going through everything on that island, because again, very small, community, rural, that sort of thing. So a bunch of us went into this private school in Seattle, which entailed we have to take ferry boats up, to get off the island. So it was like, get on the ferry, take a community bus into downtown Seattle, go to school there. I mean, it was like some long days.
How long did the transportation, the trip?
About an hour each way, maybe more.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
If you factor in getting from the house to the ferry dock and
Gotcha.
everything else. So yeah, it was a long haul. So I did that for about a year. My parents at the same time, like a lot of families on Whidbey Island, at least South Whidbey, they were working on on the mainland, we call it, working on the other side as well. So they were commuting and stuff anyway. So I kind of commuted together with them and did different stuff. But that lasted about a year. It was a rough commute to get to downtown Seattle. That was before the traffic that you have now in the Seattle area. So when that wrapped up, I should say that after 1 year, I was like, this is a bit much. And so I transferred to another school that was actually not on Whidbey Island. It was on the mainland, but it was in it was near. It wasn't in downtown Seattle. It was in a smaller town, Everett, which is much closer to the ferry dock. That way I could go across the ferry and take a school bus for 10 minutes and not be taking like a commuter bus for an hour or so.
But was the education as good?
It was a public school, but it was in a more well-funded district,
okay.
I guess. So yeah, probably the education compared to what's going on in South Whidbey they probably had more financial resources, I guess I'd say that. So I ended up doing that. So I was really not going to school, which also gets back to your other question, like how close I am with people on the island. It's like, well, I'm kind of more close to the people I went to high school with than were, even though I only knew them for 3 or 4 years kind of thing. And so, so I did that wrapped up, and I was like, okay, I'll go into the University of Washington. I wasn't really ready to leave the state. I applied to different schools, and then I did that, but I really didn't have an idea of what I was really wanting to do. So I lasted basically 1 year at the University of Washington. I went fishing, commercial fishing in Alaska when that summer wrapped up. And
What age?
So I was 19. Oh, wait. No, I'm sorry. I misspoke. It wasn't my first year. I went 1 year at the University of Washington. I got done. I had the summer break. I came back, and then the second year, I didn't go a full year. I stopped midway through because I wanted to go fishing in Alaska, and also I started practicing karate at a school that was right next to where I lived in Seattle. That was kind of through that is how I actually even ended up in Japan. So I was like, basically dropped out of college because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm spending a lot of money. All I want to do is practice karate all day long, and then I'm going to go fishing in Alaska.
But you saw Karate Kid, and that is that what did it? Is that what did it?
What?
No, I definitely saw the Karate Kid, but this was a few years after that. Yeah, this was definitely several years after that.
Did you have any bullies? Did you have a situation where you kept on dreaming about it?
No, I didn't have anything like that at all. I wish my life was that exciting.
But Karate Kid did have a spark.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, I like that. And of course, growing up in that era, I think like a lot of kids, we had a lot of stuff where you got the Star Wars stuff and the Jedi and all these things are like tied into these like influence on like Asian martial arts.
That's right.
Yeah, and so I kind of dabbled with something on Whidbey Island with the guy who was teaching there, and I moved to Seattle. And I happened to move into this school that was like, it was a very high quality school, and the instructor was from, he grew up in Nakanoku actually, he was originally from Japan.
Oh, so that's your
Lived in
first
Hawaii.
experience with someone Japanese.
Yeah, and then he was in Hawaii for a little bit, and so, I mean, we were tied into this whole like international Japanese organization, and I kind of went in like, oh yeah, this is really cool. So I ended up there, and I actually officially dropped out of school for a while. I was just working there, so I was
In Alaska?
No, at the dojo.
At the dojo?
I got a job there at the dojo.
In
So-
Alaska, summertime.
And I was fishing in Alaska in the summer.
Okay,
just to make some
so that was
extra
still
money.
the same, all the same time. All right, now let's get to the big part. How you two met and how you developed this.
Okay.
Wow.
Go.
Cool. So
Yeah.
Travis actually like ended up coming to Japan, right? So you could probably talk about that first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, through that connection of being at the
Mhm.
school, so I eventually did go back to college. I'll just throw that in really fast. I worked at the dojo for many years. I enjoyed it. We had a great time, but I wasn't quite sure that I was going to pursue that as like a long-term career path. Like I didn't know if I wanted to run my own dojo and do all that. I figured I should go back to school. I went back to school.
To get a degree in what?
I ended up getting a degree in, it was mostly like, my major was in zoology. I had a minor in chemistry, so I was studying more like biological systems, that sort of
There you
thing.
go.
And I had a bit of an influence on ocean stuff, because again, I was fishing in Alaska every summer. So I liked that. And so and at that time there was no talk about, when I was at the dojo, we were just training like martial arts. I wasn't allowed to talk about like what we do here, like functional anatomy or performance training and things like that. So yeah, I went back to school. Right as I finished, I was talking to a guy at the dojo. His son was training there. He was Spanish. His wife was Japanese. His kid was obviously mixed, and he had been training at the dojo for a long time. So I knew the guy, and he just pulled me aside one day, just out of the blue, and he was like, "Hey, Travis, you seem really interested in like martial arts in Japan and things like this. Have you ever thought about living in Japan?" And I was like, "No, never." And he's like, "Wow, they have these scholarships and stuff. You could probably apply for it. You just graduated from, your undergrad. You could probably apply to grad school there. Let me know if you're interested. I can introduce you to some people." And so I did. I was like, that sounds cool. Long story short, I ended up getting into the University of Tokyo on a full scholarship, and they moved me out here to Japan, and that's what brought me out to Japan.
And did you finish that scholarship?
Yeah, I got my Ph.D. from the University of Tokyo.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, so you're adopted. Why don't people call you Dr. Travis? You just keep that hidden.
Yeah.
Like your martial arts ability. By the way, were you studying Shotokan?
I was studying Shoryu.
Stoga, okay.
Yeah.
Because I think there's 4 basic.
Yeah, so
ones,
you have
right? They just broke up the
Shoryu,
same,
Shotokan, Wado,
Right.
Goju,
Right,
and then
exactly.
Shoryu also,
Right.
has some influence there as well. But
That's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So that's what got me to Japan, and that's where.
Well, come on, well, bring it together. How'd you guys meet?
so
She was in the dojo.
No.
You said
No, I wasn't. No, so he came here and he wanted to continue like karate practice, right? But he had like quite severe chronic hip pain. So he started looking for different like solutions and going to see different doctors and different physios and all those people. Like he tried to get that information from, like they couldn't even figure it out. And then some of them told him like he needed to have surgery, but he knew it wasn't something like that. But he was still like looking for things, and he ended up like talking to Chris, right? First.
Chris, yeah.
Who is?
It's a friend of mine. He was another. When I was doing my PhD at University of Tokyo, he was an undergrad there from New Zealand, and he was a little bit ahead of the curve. He had been studying with some stuff. He was studying ocean science stuff as well, because that's what I was also doing at University of Tokyo. But he was into Aikido, and he'd also had studied some things like early stuff. You hear the concepts of like functional training stuff. It's a big buzzword now. 20 years ago, it
Nobody
wasn't,
heard about
but
it.
a couple of people knew, and he was kind of on that and started introducing.
Did
me
he
to
ride it
people.
into? Did he ride that wave in?
No, because I did. I ended up switching
I know,
careers,
but
and
he
like,
didn't.
no, he ended up doing other stuff. He
Yeah.
just put me onto some different like educators, and I was reading their stuff. And one of the things that kept popping up in there was like looking at how your body functions, and this concept of this kind of treatment called Rolfing came up in some of these textbooks that I was reading.
So she ralphed me before she ralphed you.
Yeah.
My goodness.
No,
No, you did him first?
No, that was
I
like
actually didn't do much Rolfing. She'll explain that.
yeah. So like he actually got my name from Dr. Sappers.
Right. Do you remember Dr. Greg Sappers?
Yeah.
He was like He's a
MD,
medical doctor, but also an acupuncture.
Acupuncture.
Helios Clinic in Roppongi.
No, I didn't go to him. I went to another guy who used acupuncture, but he also used electricity.
Oh,
Okay.
And I said, this guy's nuts. I think he was just experimenting.
There's a technique like that. But
I know.
so he just happened to know me, and then he gave Travis my, contact information. So he said, like, send him an email, and then so started communicating, and then, I knew like Rolfing wasn't exactly the answer, but we decided to have just one single session to see what I could do, and then so I had the session with them, and then seemed like the more than anything, like what he needed was just to find out what was going on with his system. So I started helping him to find different like sports doctors and stuff. So we started communicating.
Okay, and then.
Yeah.
And then.
So we started going on dates
So
to
who asked
hospitals.
who?
Yes,
I
I'm
was
going
over there at
to.
6 o'clock. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
So finding the doctor and then just helping him to, communicate with doctor. I didn't know his Japanese was so good. So I thought
He kept that a secret. Like his martial arts, and like his Ph.D.
Yeah, he never spoke to me in Japanese, so I didn't know. But
So every now and then you be,
close to my chest.
so every now and then you be with your friend and you say, "Koso, kakuyo."
Yeah. Yeah, but what I liked about him was like when he said he was going to do something, like to send a message or to do something, he always did. And then that was a very, you meet so many people and then people say things, but not exactly like that's what they do, but even tiny things he delivered.
Whatever he said he was going to do, he did it.
So it started like, kind of developing my trust towards him as a friend, as a person. And then, yeah.
How many years did you guys, when you started dating, how many years did you date before you?
It wasn't years, actually.
Oh, you did? Okay, so when you guys decided, you said, hey.
Yeah, it was like, oh,
You were
yeah,
ready,
yeah, this works.
you were ready, you were ready.
Yeah, I think we were like living together within like,
Couple of
6
months,
weeks or
yeah.
something.
Come on, you said, okay. Well, you know.
And then moved to a bigger place, and then a few years after that, and got married.
Yeah.
So it's been how many years now?
Been together since when I was 40, right? It's like almost like 18, 19 years now.
19 years. Who decided this? And how do you pronounce the name of your lab?
Oh, this.
Because you use a Japanese pronunciation, or do you use the American pronunciation?
Yeah.
We used the American. Kinetikos.
Kinetikos,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do the Japanese say it?
Kinetikos.
Kinetikos.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so good at it.
You're very good.
Yeah.
You should be. How many years were you together before you decided this? And what made you come to this decision that you wanted to have your own lab? I think you told me, one time we talked, and you told me it's always been a dream of yours to have your own place.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. But
yes,
yeah, we decided to open this place, and back then though we didn't really have any business plan or anything. But we had gone through 40 weeks mentorship program with Gray Institute.
Mm-hmm.
So physical therapy, kind of performance training institute.
And then we got huge influence from them, and then we wanted to do things we wanted to do, not just within someone else's platform or protocol. So we wanted to do something like just purely wanted to help people with, and then so we decided to open up the facility without having any business plan. So. We didn't have any business loan, anything. We just bought all those equipment
Yeah, you used our own money. All the stuff you're not supposed to do.
Right.
Just empty our savings account and went into personal debt, and then
and then Tsunami hit. That's why Travis saying that we're this close to go.
Because we opened the space up and we had we had some foreign clientele, but we hadn't gotten into the Japanese market, and there was the big scare, and all the foreigners, they're like, hey, we can afford to leave for a while, see what happens with this Fukushima thing, and we're like, we can't afford to be sitting here with our doors closed. So,
that's the time.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Does that affect, where are your plans for your future, now with this COVID? Has COVID affected you in a good or bad way?
Not really.
Well, I shouldn't say it hasn't affected us. I mean, it has. I think it's affected everybody. But this space here, we actually renamed this. When we first opened the space, it was called a Synergy Center. We had other people involved, and it was this kind of more like a multidisciplinary space that a lot of people were kind of sharing, so we're all kind of working out of. And a few years, because we took our continuing education quite seriously, and we were going back and forth to the United States a lot. We were studying with a lot of people.
I saw that on Facebook.
And through that, we started developing relationships with some of these educators. They were fairly well-known educators, both in the U.S. and internationally. And we started bringing them to Japan to facilitate continuing education. So more and more, we were getting tied into like facilitating continuing ed. And also, one of the ways we helped kind of revive this place after the tsunami was that, and all the stuff with Fukushima and all that, is that we got together with the company TRX, so like the straps.
The straps, right? Because
so
that became,
So we had some connections
among the
with
first
them.
to come in with that.
Yeah, we had some connections with them when they first came to Japan. So we were, part of their education team. They're running all their certification courses here. We're actually booking all of their, registrations and stuff for our website and all that. So that really helped, and we still have a great relationship with them. I love them. Kaori is like one of their senior master instructors, and still does that. But as we started we were obviously doing sessions here, and we started picking up more and more of continuing ed type work, helping provide education for Japanese professionals. And so from that grew out of this idea of like, well, maybe we can have an online type platform where people can access stuff and learn and see what's going on internationally and kind of stay up to date. And that platform was called Kinetikos, and we launched that in 2013. And so after a few years of running that, it started getting a little bit confusing of like, oh, we have the Synergy Center as this facility, but we have Kinetikos and this, and we're like, okay, let's bring it all together in one name. So it was Kinetikos, this became Kinetikos Lab, we revamped this.
What year was that?
That was 2017?
16, 17, something like that.
You brought it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we were basically running that, and we were doing, so we had a very large online presence going back to probably about 2000. Well, we launched in 2013. We really had gotten a pretty decent presence by about 2017, really, by the time we brought everything together. So we were doing that and facilitating a lot of continuing ed. We got to the point where we were taking people to the United States, and we'd run dissection labs there, take like 50 or 60 Japanese students and run stuff. And so when COVID hit, obviously it ended a lot of that movement stuff.
Traveling stuff,
That ended. A lot of our personal stuff going and personally vetting and checking out different people internationally and thinking about how to put them in our team and things like that. That's all kind of come to an end. But since we already had a lot of these online tools that we're already using, we were able to just kind of lean into that a little bit harder than we were doing before. So that was okay. Our field facility here, we switched into, we have some staff here, really great staff, our team that we love, and we helped, transition into doing kind of online type stuff right away. But as you probably know, like Japan just didn't seem to get hammered initially. I know this Omicron thing is quite different, but like in 2020 and 2021, I was looking at places around the world and other facilities and people I knew that were just like, they just couldn't open their doors.
That's right. They were getting fined and everything else.
And Japan, it was like, no, it was okay. And so as long as we kept the numbers small, we were doing like one-on-one stuff, and we had everyone's mask and windows open, we could still kind of do our thing here, and then we're doing it online. And then of course we have our professional education that's still going. So yeah, it wasn't, we weathered it okay. I mean,
that's right.
I always kind of remind myself of that.
I think, to be honest, Japan was very kind. I want to thank both of you for taking the time today to be on this podcast. This has been really great for me. Fantastic. Should we fist bump or should we shake hands? Fist bump! Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank all of you for watching this podcast. Make sure you never forget that it's all alone, reach for the stars, and you're too blessed to be stressed.